You face battles most never fought, pain, struggle, adversity. But here, we use that as fuel. This is the Battle Harder podcast, where we motivate, educate, and inspire warriors of life, veterans, survivors, leaders. We share stories and strategies to turn pain into progress. Here's your host, Coach Rob. Let's lock in and battle harder.
Yo, what is up, everybody? I'm your host, Coach Rob. Welcome to the Battle Harder podcast, where I hope to motivate, educate, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. Today, my guest with me is Steve Cooper, and I can't wait to have this amazing conversation with him because this dude has been battle tested. He's warrior approved, and we're going to get into some very deep thought on this episode when it comes to overcoming trauma, adversity, mindset, and everything in between. So, Steve, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey, thanks for your time, Rob, and I look forward to getting right into it.
Awesome. So, speaking to Steve before, Steve is an actual cancer survivor. And before we get into that, he's also a veteran. So just give me a little synopsis of what you did in the military, how many years you were in, and how or when you got out, and what led you to get out of the military.
Sure. So, Rob, I joined in 1989, light infantry at Fort Ord, California. Did my first 4 years there. Absolutely incredible experience to train with some of literally the greatest warriors on earth. And then after that, re-enlisted because in our last year we did an NTC rotation at Fort Irwin, California. And I vividly remember, being in light infantry, we carried 50 to 100-pound rucksacks everywhere we went. And our last rotation at NTC, the military police were there with their Humvees watching us and waving at us as we were taking off for 30 days in the desert. And I said, damn. So I came back, reclassified to military police, got retrained. But the joke was kind of on me because then I got sent back to Fort Ord to the 7th MP Company, which is the only light MP company at the time. So it was back to the rocking and road marching and all the same good stuff. However, that base closed shortly thereafter under the BRAC base realignment and closure in 1994. And then I went to college and finished up my bachelor's degree in 95 the following year. Then returned back to the military and served a balance of 18 years on active duty. And after 9/11, a big part of my role was going to Fort Bliss to help protect the base and then create the first Department of the Army Police Academy with 5 other members of my team to train 160 federal police officers to guard the base while the military police deploy. So therefore, there are federal police in place to protect the dependents and the base assets, etc. Did that. After that, went taught at the MP school, had a great time. And then my last tour was absolutely incredible. Teaching at the NCO Academy, a dream come true. Started out teaching PLDC, which was the basic course for those aspiring to be non-commissioned officers as a leadership school. Then went on to train and teach at the basic non-commissioned officer academy course, which is the more advanced course for non-commissioned officers. And then the last 2 years really focused on teaching and training military instructors from across the Army, from you name it, from nurses teaching at nursing school, to MPs teaching at MP school, to infantry guys teaching infantry school. They had to be instructor certified. So initially I taught that course, and then I ran that course. So I had a cadre of instructors who then did a great job training instructors that literally throughout the world train our nation and warriors to fight and win our wars.
That's awesome. That's a lot of experience as an instructor in teaching. So, I mean, you're a man after my own heart because I'm a military police officer as well, just in the Navy. So we won't bag on each other too much. But for the civilians that don't know, explain briefly what light infantry is, that someone that may not know.
Sure. So light infantry is basically, think of when we were kids and we played Army, right? And we had toy soldiers and we had, plastic guns, and we chase the bad people, right? So infantry soldiers are literally the ground soldiers that are the sphere of the battle in any particular situation. Light infantry in particular means no vehicles.
Mm.
So we don't have helicopters, we don't have Humvees, we don't have any vehicle assets whatsoever. So what that means is we literally walk wherever we go. And so a major component of our training for those years was all about being as physically fit as possible because the demands were so high of light infantry. And so we'd be asked to walk anywhere from 15 to 25 miles with 100 pounds on our back multiple times throughout the year to ensure that we were able to meet the demands of the Army.
And there definitely isn't any training like ruck training. I remember myself
Yes.
in my CB days wearing the 50-pound rucksack with all the gear and marching down the street and thinking, God, this is the most horrible thing I've ever had to do in my life. So from that elite training and being an instructor, how do you think that started to forge you as a man and as someone like discipline in your mindset as the military trained you?
One of my favorite questions that I never asked, Rob, is that question. I was 18 when I joined, not unlike a lot of young boys, young men at the time, that had a lot of energy, um, didn't have a lot of guidance,
Mm,
didn't have a lot of local support or aspirations or goals, but had energy and had a dedication and a willing to do something bigger than ourselves. And so I found myself, in high school, not focused, doing the right activities, spending time with the wrong people. And so I saw clearly that, my life wasn't going to truly materialize until I tried to do something that was productive. And so having recruiters on our campus talk to us, what was so appealing to me was being in the Army, being able to join the infantry. And then by talking to recruiters, I kind of set out a career plan that was go to become a light infantry, switch over to military police, go through some ranger training, which I did, and then eventually apply for CIA while I also earned my bachelor's and master's degrees. And so that was my career trajectory. What was so fascinating to me is that when I graduated boot camp and infantry school and went to Fort Ord with my cohort, it was a group of 18 and 20-year-olds, and we were fully committed to each other.
mm,
However, what was so incredible and so powerful, and I believe this is true for the military model, defense wide, is that I needed guidance and I needed mentorship. And so then I had a team leader, right, as what I would consider my big brother. And then
right.
I had a squad leader who was like my father. And then I had the platoon leader, kind of like just a jackass, right? And then I had the commander who was like God, right? Or our grandfather. And those men, and I say men because light infantry at the time was male specific only, um, truly held me accountable. My team leader, big brother, would knock on my door, all of our doors at 4:30 every morning to ensure we were awake for PT at 5 o'clock. Missing formation was not acceptable.
Right.
And so I had the accountability and the discipline from these mentors, big brothers, if you will, to guide me, lead me, and train me. And that was so powerful because, as you know, in the military, after you do 6 or 7 or 8 months and you do well, you typically get a promotion to E2,
Right.
which to me it's interesting. People downplay the promotion to E2. I think it's powerful because you take the private off the street, and now you're a private E2, and now you're responsible, as you know, for a private E1,
Mm,
right? And so now, and then you may only have one private that's below you, but now you have some responsibility, and that's to me the first step into becoming the leader that then is taught and trained how to hold others accountable, and you have to do that, as you know, leading by example. So you got to get your stuff squared away, right? To be that E2, that E3 that can then guide and mentor and coach those E1s and E2s. So for me, I thrived on that because here I went from just being a kid that was, rambunctious, full of
right.
energy, misguided, to wow, I have a mission. This is important. I'm getting recognized. I'm getting, the attaboys. I'm also getting my ass kicked when I'm doing the wrong thing. But it's all from a good place, from a good heart to try to make me become a better person. And
Right.
so I didn't have that in my household because my dad passed when I was a young child. And
Mm.
so I needed that. And to the cherry on top was that being in the light infantry, 25% of my peers and the soldiers I served with were Rangers certified.
Wow.
And so I had a platoon sergeant that was had won the Ranger Best of the Best competition, and so that's a very grueling event that literally pits the best Rangers in the world together for an excruciating event
That's cool.
over several days to determine who's the best. And he had won the competition, and the level of discipline he instilled in us by going to the beach, running every day, running with rucksacks, never giving up. And he would literally yell in our ears the whole time we were running 5 or 10 miles, never give up, never quit. But the biggest thing he would say that stuck with me to this day is that he would say, once a quitter, always a quitter.
Mm.
And I can raise my hand and certify to you to this day, Rob, that I have never quit or given up on any mission, any job, any assignment, military or civilian, in my entire life, because that mantra was instilled upon me over the course of hundreds of runs and road marches that once you quit, you are a quitter. Doesn't mean I'm not a badass. I'm not, Superman. I'm not, nothing like that. But I became a good person, I believe, and a strong person that could then contribute to society because I had a skill set ingrained inside of me from some of the best operatives in the special forces community on earth.
And I love all of that. And for the civilians that may not know, for people maybe considering the military or feel lost, the military is kind of like a lost boys club, so to speak,
Yes.
because the more veterans that we talk to, a lot of us are, I would say a huge percent, maybe 50% of us, we're the same thing. We have no direction. We don't know what we want to do in life. We have no idea where to go. Something shifts where we join the military for whatever reason. For me, it was, hey, I'm going to piss off my dad, but it didn't work. So, but the military gave me guidance. It gave
Yes.
me purpose. It gave me structure. It gave me discipline. It gave me consistency. So for all the bad with the mental health and the injuries and other stuff, it built a lot of good. So I want to say to those young people here before we get further in conversation, if you're thinking about joining the military, really consider it and weigh out all your options, because for all the bad rap that military does, it does so much good for a lot of people and turns us into kind of like badass superheroes that can deal with anything and become successful and become profitable. And it's all from people that weren't any smarter than you, weren't any better than you. We just got the structure, the discipline, and the training to build that mindset and have that mindset shift to do what was necessary to be successful.
Yes.
So with
And I would
every,
add on that, Rob, one
go
point
ahead.
is, I vividly recall in high school with my buddies of us that also joined the military, we were shooting spitballs in class and, just doing anything other than just because at that point,
Schoolwork, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
18 years old, you learn the basics, right? Reading, writing, arithmetic, etc. Now they're talking about some nonsense or whatever. And you're like, seriously? And all I want to do is be outside, first of all, not
Hmm.
on fluorescent lights, which that's a whole other issue I just think just kills
Yeah.
humanity. But I wanted to be outside. I want to be with my friends, and I wanted to be doing stuff. And so for everything that I got reprimanded for in high school, right, and sent to the principal's office, spitballs, throwing paper balls, airplanes, all of that, that type of, when funneled correctly, right, and properly, that type of behavior to be doing activities, right, road marching, obstacle courses, going to the range, all of that was not only expected but then rewarded because you were doing a good job because you're able to then find an outlet for all the energy that most 18-year-old kids, I believe, should have
Yeah.
if they're not on these medications to try to stop that. So that to me really is the biggest game changer in my life is getting us kids that are so excited with so much energy into a position where we're away from a chalkboard and we're out there having a great time, expending an energy for the greater good.
And I would even go as far to say is if, you're in high school right now and you're thinking about the military, try the high school ROTC programs
Yes.
to get a little taste of kind of what goes on. And if you're a high performer, you definitely want to go that route because that can help you so many ways in advancement when you start your military career. So definitely the military isn't as bad, I think, sometimes as people make it out to be. Yes, a lot of bad stuff happens to us, but you have to figure out how to deal with that bad stuff when it happens. So let's talk about what ultimately led you to get out of the military, and then
Sure.
kind of your timeline of what happened next after that.
Yeah, great question, Rob. So, 2006, my stepfather died. And
Mm.
my stepfather was the primary care provider for my mother and my sister. My mother's legally blind. My sister is completely disabled, mentally retarded, and
Oh,
has
wow.
severe motor function disabilities. At that point, it was very difficult because I wanted to continue to serve. It was after 9/11. 5 years later, I was at the NCO Academy. I had loved every day of being in the academy around aspiring young leaders, being able to coach, teach, and mentor those young soldiers, and I loved it. However, my greater responsibility was to my family, and my commander agreed with me. And so, because my stepfather had passed away, I received a hardship discharge,
Mm.
honorable, of course, to then be released from the military to solely be the sole caregiver, breadwinner, if you will, as well for my mother and my sister. So, unfortunately, the military career got reduced. I would have stayed in 30, 35 years. Ironically, just today I saw the MP Corps announce their new regimental sergeant major, and that was always my aspiration.
Oh, wow.
My dream was I wanted to be the regimental, sergeant major for the military police corps. Just I felt like I had been given great training, was awarded amazing opportunities to go to undergraduate, graduate school, and even do my doctorate work on through active duty. So I felt I was prepared. I loved the MP Corps and everything it stood for, and I just really consumed it all. So, but life had a different plans
Different
for
plan,
me,
right?
and I always believe family is first, and family should always be first, in my opinion. So I got out at that point, and then was recruited by a private equity firm to lead an online university in
Mm.
Phoenix, Arizona, because of my background in teaching,
Right.
plus, and not just in the military, but also I've been doing some adjunct teaching offline, well, online, not during the military time, but on the weekends and nights, etc.,
Gotcha.
doing some online training. So I had some experience teaching college, had a lot of experience training soldiers. They thought I was a good pick to run and lead that university.
So, I mean, man, your father passes, you join the military, you're having a flourishing career, your mom needs your help, your sister needs your help, you have to end that career, but you still have instructional mindset, you still like to teach and pass knowledge on to everybody else. So just take me through like I guess your teaching career, and then let's get to the meat of what I want to talk about, the bad stuff. Like, so
Sure.
guys, what's crazy about this story is it gets worse. And Steve, from, I want to say, his military training and lessons from, his father, his stepfather, his family's very important. I think that's a great thing to have. We'll talk about mindset shifts and stuff, but things for him gets considerably worse in this story.
Yeah.
And the fact that he is still here and he's talking to me and he's fought all this adversity just speaks a testament to his character, but the resilience that we have. So, okay, so as you hear this, I want you to really hear this and think about the problems that you have in your life may not be as bad as you think, right? So when you're letting these little things take energy or control you or causing you mental health issues or anxiety, figure out that emotional control, that emotional regulation to deal with these things better, because there's always somebody that has something happen worse to you. And we're about to get into it. So go ahead, Steve.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob. So, stuff we've talked about so far, I value and cherish in my heart. I believe it's what helped create the person I am today,
Mm.
in part. However, my real challenges and real struggles didn't start till the day I left the military.
Mm.
And so, I shared some fun things, some good things, some challenging things, but nothing pale into comparison to what would happen the day after I separated. So, because I was very active at the NCO Academy, doing some very creative things, using new technology, motivating instructors to train other instructors, etc. I was invited to speak at the Sergeant Major Academy at Fort Bliss, Texas, which trains all the sergeant majors for the United States Army. And that was my last day on active duty. And I gave I think I had like 12 minutes. I gave a 12-minute presentation, very concise, on the things we were doing at the NCO Academy. It was fine. Nice, round of applause. It's a break time. I get ready to take off because this is my last day in active duty. And I have a line of sergeant majors when I speak to me, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I gave a great speech. Like, that's the greatest thing ever, right? I'm going to get a bunch of coins, and this is so exciting. And literally, there was 12 to 13, 14 sergeant majors lined up. And yeah, everyone would come up and say, hey, Coop, great job what you're doing out at Fort Dixon, Jersey. Nice stuff. But not one of them was there to share that message with me. Every one of them was there to share the message with me that tomorrow, because I told them I'm flying from here to Phoenix tomorrow to start the next chapter of my life. And every single sergeant major told me that when you get to Phoenix, your first job, your first order is not to go report for your new career, not to go look for an apartment, but it's to go to the VA and apply for your benefits. They knew I was infantry, and they knew that I'd been in a long time, and we all ended up having problems, backs, knees, etc. And so one thing I learned, especially in the military as a junior NCO, is that you need to listen to your senior NCOs.
Right.
Those guys and girls have been there and done that, and there's a reason why they're in those positions, right? So here I had the opportunity to be mentored by 12, 13, or 14 sergeant majors, literally on my way out the door. I'm going to do exactly what they said. Right. I swear to you, I landed at Phoenix Sky Harbor about probably 8:30. I took a taxi cab to the Phoenix VA benefit office, which was about 20 minutes. So I probably got there 10 minutes before they opened. And there I am, in my suit, spit shine shoes, all my paperwork, and ready to go, and ready to file, all my paperwork for my VA disability benefits. And so I filed the claim, did all the paperwork, and then went about my life. However, about a year went by, and I heard nothing back from the VA, the Phoenix VA. And so this was 2008. And so I put a little reminder, because I remember the lady vividly saying at the reception desk, give us a year. If you don't hear from us, call us back. Had my BlackBerry at the time, pulled it out, put in a calendar reminder for the following year. So now 2009, go by the Phoenix VA, the benefit office. So the following year, 2009, I go in, same lady's there, say, how you doing? She's doing well. I say, hey, just checking on my claim. She's like, punches my name in the computer. I'll come back in here and check on it, see how your things are going. Mind you, Rob, I'm doing well. I'm running a company, income's fine, perfect insurance, no issues whatsoever. But I always remembered what those sergeant majors told me, right?
Right.
No matter what, you've got to get these claims processed. You got to get your benefits. So 2010 comes around, no exaggeration, BlackBerry reminder. I go down to the VA.
Wow.
The same exact lady says, at that time, she remembered me. Hey, I remember you from last year. I'm like, yeah, I've been here 3 years in a row now. And she pulled up the computer, said, we don't have anything for you. Come back in a year. Fine. 2011, I come back. 2011, I'm not feeling too well. Having some stomach issues, some rectal issues, things of that nature. And then obviously the knees and the back and other kind of things are starting to take a toll on me. And so I said, hey, ma'am, can we check out my claim? And she's like, I don't see a claim for you in the system. And I'm like, I've been coming back here, as you know, every year. And she goes, yeah, I remember you. You have a big smile, and you come in every year in a suit. You say hi and check in. And I said, man, this has been going on for like 4 years now.
Wow.
Now I got some medical issues. And so I asked to speak to a supervisor. He said, we know you came here 4 times. We see it's logged in the system, but we don't have your claim. We don't know where it's at. So he suggested I do my claim again. No problem. Resubmitted my claim 2011. The end of 2011, Rob, I started getting really sick. And so I went to the Phoenix VA, and I saw a nurse practitioner. And the nurse practitioner checked my rectum because I told her I was having rectal pain, abdominal pain. And she said, Steve, you have an enlarged prostate.
Mm.
And I said, okay. Um, I thought, I don't really know what that means, so I'm going to ask this provider. So I asked the nurse practitioner, what does that mean? And she said, it's nothing to worry about. Don't worry, ignore it.
Oh, wow.
So I assumed from a medical professional that that means it's like my nose, right? Large and asymmetrical. It just don't worry about it. It's how my anatomical body's created.
Right.
So I continue on 6 more months. I get to the point where blood everywhere. I'm
Oof.
miserable. I'm sick. I'm not doing great. I go to the Phoenix VA again. This time I see an actual medical doctor. And it's probably almost about a year since I saw that nurse practitioner. And this is 2012. The doctor, and this to me is a story that I think will resonate with a lot of veterans. He walks in. My father was a doctor, so I learned you always stand up. You never shake someone's hand sitting down. You address yourself. You call them sir, doctor, etc. Extend the greeting of the day. All the stuff that you're taught in the military and that kind of thing.
Right.
So I stand up, extend my hand. He doesn't shake my hand. He sits down. He has a turban on. He's from Pakistan. He starts banging on his computer. He says, I hate my fucking job.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, wow. I said, well, sorry to hear that, sir, but hey, doc, I need some help. So he's like, fine. So he kind of grumbles, goes through my records. He sees that I had a large asymmetrical prostate. And so he says, hey, where is your PSA? And I literally thought at the time, PSA, public service announcement. I'd never heard the word PSA before. He's like, you had the test, you just don't know you had it. I'm like, okay, fine. So he goes through my records for about 5 minutes, bitching and moaning. And he's like, wow, you actually did not have the test done last year when you should have. And I said, what do you mean? He said, when that nurse practitioner saw that you had a large asymmetrical prostate, she should have ordered a PSA, which is a test, prostate-specific androgen, to detect if you have any levels of prostate cancer. Moreover, she should have sent you to a urologist for a full workup. So at that point was the first indication that this isn't right. I get sent over to the Phoenix VA, to the actual the hospital proper itself. Most of this was through clinics and
outpatient clinics and
exact outpatient clinics. So I get into the hospital for the first time in 2012, and it's a shit show. The bathroom stalls are all broken. The food stinks. The garbage cans are disgusting. There is literally fecal matter on exam walls.
Oof.
There's blood all over the place.
Sounds like a horror show.
Yes, it's a horror show. No one cares. I had some scans and x-rays and blood work done, all done by students that were in college, at a community college, doing my blood work, doing my x-rays, not knowing what the hell they're doing. In the x-ray room, I'll never forget this, there was holes in the wall where they're doing x-rays. And you can imagine with the radiation, it shouldn't be escaping those rooms, right? I grew up with my dad who was a doctor. I saw what good medicine looked like at UCLA and other facilities. And I'm thinking to myself, this just isn't right. So I put all that in the back of my mind. The doctor calls me and says, hey, you need to do that PSA blood work. So I did, and the PSA came back at 50. A man's PSA should be below 3. 0 to 3 is an optimal range. 50 is
that's crazy.
Way too high, indicative of a metastatic disease typically throughout the body. So he said, hey, listen, and men need to understand this really important point. One PSA can have a false positive, and that happens. So he said, here's the protocol when we have this situation. Take 3 days, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Don't exercise rigorously. Don't have sex. Don't masturbate. Nothing like that. Just take it very easy. Watch some TV. Just relax. I did that. Went back in Monday morning, took my test, the PSA again. He called me in the afternoon and said, oh, Steve, it's 52. This is now a problem.
Wow. So it went up.
So that was the first indication that I had something really going wrong, not just in my body, but with the VA system itself. And so 2 parallel things started to happen. First, I sought to get care for the prostate cancer that I was told I probably have. I went in and got a biopsy done by the infamous Dr. Thomas Mobley. He was a physician at the heart of the Phoenix VA scandal, who was retired from the private sector after 50 years. So he was in his 80s, and he collected a check for $250,000 a year as the chief of urology. And whether he did one surgery a year or 200 surgeries a year, he received his $250,000 a year and his $25,000 bonus every single year, regardless of what he did. And so this Dr. Mobley was not screening veterans for prostate cancer, especially Vietnam veterans in their 60s and 70s that had advanced prostate cancer. And so we know at least 40 veterans died at the Phoenix VA because Dr. Thomas Mobley failed to diagnose and treat their prostate cancer. That's the tip of the iceberg. So when I saw him, he did my biopsy. It was barbaric. No sedation. Had two nurses pin me down physically in the prone with the rectal probe and took 12 cores out of my prostate. That is the way you do it, but typically sedated.
Wow.
I stood up, blood everywhere, and he says, we'll call you in a week or two with the results. My cousin drives me to lunch. I pass out because I had lost so much blood. He rushes me back to the emergency room. They do the blood infusion, IVs, all of that, get me back on track. About a month later, that doctor calls me and says, you have advanced prostate cancer. You have very high scores, one of the worst I've seen in my career, and there's absolutely nothing I can do for you, nor will I do. This was on a Friday, and he says, hospice will call you Monday morning.
So before we get into that, and I have a question for you, but so for the civilians or people listening at home that maybe doesn't have a veteran in their family or hasn't dealt with veterans, VA healthcare is a lot better, but it's still broken. It's a very broken system. A lot of vets don't go to VA healthcare because of similar situations like this. Now, luckily, thank God, I don't think anything is as bad as what poor Steve went through during that time. But getting medicine, seeking mental health, I can tell you a story where I see my therapist and I ask her to be put on something and she gives me the exact opposite. And it's this thinking that they know better than what the vets need and they're just going to do what they want to do. So when you listen to vets and you listen to vets complain about getting on disability or getting their compensation or getting medical appointments, they do not make it easy for us. Okay. I want my public, my civilian public to understand this, because people think all the time, oh, veterans, you're just getting free. No, they make us go through hell and back to get something, whether we claim a knee injury, a back injury, having cancer, having a major disease. And when we're in the military, the one thing that nobody will tell you, and I don't know, it may be better now, when you get injured or hurt, they tell you not to complain about it. They tell you to suck it up and here's some Motrin and just deal with it. And that's a real thing across the board and across services, right? Because they don't want to spend the money to heal you. And I've always believed that doctors, medicines, and even the VA, that if they keep you alive and they keep you healthy, they have to keep paying you, right? So, that's a whole nother episode for another time. But you're going through all this stuff. When you got told that there was nothing they could do for you and that hospice was going to call you, how did that make you feel? What was your emotions? What happened at that point?
Sure. So initially devastation, right? The country that I served for 18 years, the promise was that we will take care of you after your service, physically, right? In terms of your health. That promise was obviously broken that day, and as well as the months preceding that. So devastation. However, my father as a doctor taught me about second, third, and fourth opinions. I already had a second opinion lined up that same afternoon. I went to the private sector, had a second opinion. He agreed I had a very advanced stage 4 prostate cancer disease. However, the Phoenix VA ordered my scans, and they were going to be done in 6 to 8 months. The Dr. Mobley told me I had 6 to 12 months to live. So if you think about this timeline, right, that
you're going to get your scans back and die.
Right, and my scans are in 6 to 8 months, and it takes 3 months to get an appointment to see him after the scan. I am dead by the time I come back to talk about my results. In the private sector, Rob, I had all those scans done that same afternoon, all 3 at 3 different locations. My urologist called me back that night at 9 o'clock at night. Never forget, as long as I live. He gave me the definitive plan of action, which was that I would be in surgery 14 days later. That was the absolute soonest he could ethically do it, because I had just had a biopsy. I would start a drug that stopped my testosterone the following day, which I did. And within 6 months after surgery and radiation and stopping my testosterone, the private sector doctor had me in remission before my first VA appointment would have ever come to fruition. And that was only for imaging. So I realized at the time that I was really dealt a bad hand. And so there's two things happening. One, I had to take care of myself and fight that battle that I wanted to talk about. But more importantly was I had an obligation to share my story because what I saw at the Phoenix VA was not right.
Right. It was inexcusable.
Yes. And so I started contacting reporters anonymously because, and you alluded to it, with benefits is very tricky. And a lot of veterans are concerned that if they, raise hell or raise, issues, their benefits could be in jeopardy.
Right.
So I was like, all right, fine. And plus, I at that time then realized through friends and others that I had been a victim of malpractice, right? And so there would be a lawsuit forthcoming. So my lawyers asked me not to speak publicly about it, just keep my head low, get my treatment, they'll take care of everything. I sent out several anonymous emails. The only person actually, and I'm talking about hundreds of emails detailing everything that I've seen, Drew Griffith, rest in peace, from CNN, was the only reporter to actually return my call.
Wow.
He came out to the Phoenix VA. He tried to interview Sharon Hellman, who was a director at the time. I was standing right next to Drew at the ER. She had a private parking space for herself, being the director, at the closest entrance to the building. She walked down, left the double doors. Drew Griffith said, "Ma'am, we have several complaints from veteran Steve Cooper here and others," because he had been receiving similar types of information, that there are some systemic problems here at the VA. Would you please answer a few questions? She said, "Absolutely not," got in her blue Mercedes and drove off.
Wow.
At that moment, I said to myself, my personal lawsuit doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I have a mission much bigger. And that is to expose what I think is happening here, which is a lot of bad medicine. So I went on national news that day. I called my lawyers earlier, said, "Listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going on national TV. I'm telling the truth. I know you're not going to want to take my case anymore, and that's fine." So we parted ways, my lawyers. I didn't care about the lawsuit. I went public. She was forced to resign that day. Shinseki, the Secretary of VA, he was forced by Obama to resign the day afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And then the shit hit the fan. So where did that leave us? That led to, in my opinion, the beginning of the largest hospital scandal in the history of our nation, because it wasn't just the Phoenix VA.
Right.
We then learned throughout the VA, not all VAs, not all doctors, not all veterans, but a lot of us were getting suboptimal care.
Definitely.
And it turned into be the tens of thousands that were not getting treated properly. So to wrap that part up, Rob, we went and I found a new law firm. We went to federal court and we were successful, and I received $2.56 million in federal court for the VA's failure to diagnose and treat my cancer. But the part I want to share with you that most people don't know is that I was offered $250,000 a month before trial by the Department of Justice to drop the case.
Oh, wow.
No. A week before trial, I was offered $1 million. Didn't even hesitate to tell them to go fuck themselves. Excuse my language.
No, you're good.
The Friday before trial, I was offered $2 million. I have it in writing to drop my case and take the settlement. However, I would have to sign a non-disclosure that I would no longer pursue my mission to expose corruption at the VA. And I gave him the double middle finger and told my lawyer, "Fuck no. I'll see you guys in court Monday morning." And we won. So just to wrap that part up, Rob, was that I believe that in life, it's so critical to put mission before ourselves. And I want to suggest that that's what I did. And now it's because of the soldiers that I served with that were real heroes, not me. That's what they taught me. That it's about the mission, right? It's about something bigger than you. Whether it's, the Army's mission to fight and win our nation's wars. That's what matters. Not what Steve Cooper does, not what I go through, not what I get. It's how can I, and my mission at that time was, how do I help more veterans? I was already getting care in the private sector, but I knew fellow veterans weren't. And that's the message I'd love to share to people, that when you're getting confronted with a very big challenge, try to think about doing the mission that's bigger than yourself, not for you, but for others. And
Mm.
I believe, not myself, but those that are the greatest people in the world that I admire, the average Americans, are those that go every day and do something to help other people for them and not for themselves.
And I think, and this is amazing. And so I hope people really get to listen to this episode and understand that you were on the forefront, so to speak, or the front lines with everything that's systemically changed with the VA. Once again, it's not perfect. It is a lot better.
Correct.
It's not perfect, but this is like your own version of turning pain into progress. And this is exactly why I do what I do. It's the totality of the circumstances. And people have to realize, even as a parent, as a father, I tell my son this all the time: the smallest decisions that you make can still impact waves and waves of people, how you act in society, how you take care of yourself, how you deal with other people. And you took it on a mission, like you said, to help those that went above and beyond. And you yourself went above and beyond. And even with me, why I do this is because, whether it's survivor's guilt, whether it's the friends and family I lost due to veteran suicide or first responder suicide,
Sure.
my mission is to help people heal. My mission is to tell stories like this, Steve's journey, because this dude here has dealt with more than most. I mean, you just heard it. He went all the way through a whole VA scandal. We're not even done yet. We're just on
Yeah.
the cusp, so to speak, of what he went through, but the mindset to overcome, and not only overcome, but help people. And Steve, we'll get into later, he still helps people even today. And having that service mindset is so important. If we could just be a little more kinder and a little more service oriented instead of self oriented, I think that would go a long way in healing a lot of things in this world. So, what I want to know is, this is my favorite part of the story. So you had cancer. Talk about the event that you did, and staying in shape and everything that went on, and your thought process with that.
Absolutely. And if I could just put a bow on the VA part, if you don't mind, Rob, quickly.
Go for it.
So after the dust settled, the lawsuit was over. I then spent a considerable amount of time working with different groups like Concerned Veterans of America,
Mm,
local congressmen, and others, and senators. Senator McSally is one. And we pushed for legislation that became the Mission Act. And
awesome.
so this is, I think, really in alignment with a lot of your philosophy of in your work on how do you take something that's happened to you that's so horrible and turn it into something that can be so powerful
Right.
and so healing and beneficial for others. Because if I just sit here from that day and the rest of my life and say the VA is horrible, screw them, I hate them all, they ruined my life, that literally brings about no change.
Mm,
What would change look like? Not defending the VA, but we do know the VA is overloaded, right? We have too many veterans returning from Afghanistan and Iraq that the VA can care for. So we thought the Mission Act was the right approach. And so I'm so proud that through the work after the lawsuit, I was able to be with President Trump in the Rose Garden, where not only did he publicly apologize to me, he looked me in the face and publicly said he was sorry that our nation let you down,
oh wow.
and signed the legislation for the Mission Act and handed me the pen that legislation was signed with. And why I share that is because I took the situation, or the hand that I was dealt, if you will, which was a bad hand, and turned that
Very
into a
bad.
winning hand for a lot of veterans. Because
Mm,
now, at that point, we now had access to care in the private sector paid for by the VA. And so that's like one of the two messages I really want to share and impress upon people, Rob, is that when you're given what seems like the worst situation in the world for you, whatever that is, whether it's a divorce, a bankruptcy, cancer, I get it. I've been through a lot of this stuff. You can turn that into some of the most amazing things in the world. I truly believe the greatest things that come almost always are born from hardship.
definitely.
And so, to that hardship, I can then turn to your last question, which is what I am very passionate about as well, is what did I do to try to deal with the cancer itself?
Right.
And so, to me, I believe that I think it's inherent and it's innate in certain people to want to win.
Mm.
And I started off with that because I work with a lot of veterans and a lot of other people that I believe don't inherently have the desire to win.
Mm.
My wife and I were watching a show last night. We're into these game shows now where these kids are doing like a reality TV and
Right.
doing crazy activities and jumping off bridges and eating snakes and all that stuff. One of the kids said something I'll never forget. He said, I don't want to be in this next position, the next round, because I'd be in a position where I'd have to take action to win. And that was so powerful to
That's
me
weird.
because it is very weird. But when I reflected upon that and I look at so many people I work with in the cancer community, I see a lot of people that don't believe in themselves, that they want to win, that they can win. And
Mm.
so, because of those leaders that I told you about in the Army that said, never quit, they would tell me, once a quitter, always a quitter. They also told me, and you'll love this, when we were running, never let a senior enlisted person beat you, right? So, what does that mean? Your platoon sergeant can't be in front of you, right? Then he would yell, never let an officer beat you. So, what does that mean? Got to get in front of your LT, right? And then he'd say, and never let a goddamn commander beat you, right? So you got to be in front of your command.
Yeah.
And you see where this is going, right? So the point is, and then you're left with, holy crap, no, you can't let anybody beat you, right? You have to win. You have to be in first place. And so when I got diagnosed, I decided to seek out a support group of like-minded, positive people that were doing extraordinary things. So I started Googling. First, I came across prostate cancer support group. I went to the group, Rob. There's about 8 old men there, and then myself. I was a little younger. First guy's like, I hate my life. The
Wow.
second guy's like, I hate my wife. And the third guy's like, I hate everything. And he comes to me, and I'm like, I don't agree. I love life. I want to get married, and I'm going to do this. I got up and walked out. I searched on the internet for the hardest single day physical endurance activity on the face of the earth. And what kept coming up was the Ironman triathlon, which consists of a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and then you do the 26.2 marathon at the end, just to kind of finish it up a little bit, right?
Put the cherry on the top, right?
Yeah, 140 miles in total. And I thought this is amazing because when I went to not only the first training session with my local Ironman group, but future sessions, I'd show up and of course they'd say, hey, Coop, how you doing today? Because they knew I was going through radiation. And they put their arm around me and I'm like, okay, I'm doing okay. You're a little tired. And they're like, all right, shut the fuck up. We're going riding. Right? And they're like, I love it. They heard me, right? They heard me.
Right.
I was tired.
You found your tribe.
But yeah, found my tribe. And like, but let's go. And we'd ride for 80 miles and we'd ride 80 miles hard, right? And through this process, there's a few things that I came across that I'd love to share. I share with you a video of a young girl at the time that I found, Megan, who we became friends ever since. And she did a video during her chemotherapy with that song, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger.
Right.
Now, she didn't do an Ironman, and that's okay. But what she did do was she showed herself going through treatment with her friends and the staff, and they had a good time. They were singing and dancing, even with the IV pole, right, in her body, the chemo bag in her body. And I said, if she can have fun during arguably the worst situation in life, right, going through chemotherapy, then I can have a blast during the radiation, right? And so I'm here to tell you, I had the best time of my life during radiation. I rode my bike to and from radiation every day with friends, every single day without exception. The 5th week of my radiation, I completed the Ironman on Sunday. The following day, I went to do radiation. I was a little dehydrated for obvious reasons.
Right.
So my doctor pumped me up with some IVs. And then she said, hey, Steve, Congratulations, that's great. You completed the Ironman. What's next? Skydiving? I'm like, that's a brilliant idea, which it's not. So the last day of radiation, a week later, got my best friends together. We went skydiving. We drove to Vegas from Phoenix, and we partied the entire night until the sun came up. I had the best time of my life during radiation.
Wow.
And then to condense this, I did the exact same thing a year later during chemotherapy.
So, walk me through a little bit, like, because, chemo is very rough on the body, correct?
Yes.
So, what was your mindset like, or how did you feel internally every time, your group was like, come on, we got to ride or we got to run? Your training during actual cancer and therapy, what was it internally that like kept you going? Like, how were you able to do this?
Yes. Friends and mindset.
Mm.
First, when the days that I was low on energy, my friends physically, literally pushed me on my bicycle, riding by my side to get up that damn hill,
Oh, wow.
to continue to ride, to make sure we got 80 miles in that day. In the pool, they would literally swim and pull me to
Oh,
make sure
wow.
I got laps in. Running, I ran marathons on every single chemo session day. They would run with me 13 miles in the morning, sometimes pulling, sometimes pushing, sometimes cursing. And then after chemotherapy, I'd run the balance of that marathon with them, doing the same thing. So one is friends, your tribe, as you mentioned. You got to find your tribe, whatever that looks like. And I'll tell you, I gave this exact speech to a large group of the American Cancer Society, and they said, get the hell out of here because... Sorry, are we good?
No, you're good. I'll be able to edit it.
I gave the exact same talk at the American Cancer Society, a large event. And I said what I found to be the worst thing for me was a cancer support group for prostate cancer because of the reasons I told you. My tribe was the Ironmen and Iron Women. And of course, you're like, let's get this guy at the stage, right? All right, so it's your tribe, and then it's your mindset. I read an article, research article, when I was diagnosed, that women who pedaled a stationary bicycle during the actual chemo infusion not only had less side effects, but also had a less reoccurrence of the disease itself because they were active during chemotherapy. So that was step one, right? Mindset. Number two, I read an article that men and women were giving either chemotherapy when they had cancer or a placebo, sugar water, in two different groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people that were given sugar water, for the most part, reported almost the identical symptoms as those receiving chemotherapy.
Wow.
Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue, right? And of course, those receiving chemotherapy, for the most part, reported the same exact side effects. That was the moment that I said to myself, this battle's in my head. It's not in my body, right? So I followed Tony Robbins for years, followed David Blaine. I used to see the stuff that David Blaine used to do. Actually got to meet him a few months ago in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Told him my story, and it was the coolest thing ever because I got to blow him away, right? He blows everyone else away, and he's like, fuck, you did an Ironman during chemotherapy? I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, that's amazing. And the point is, I try to surround myself around the smartest, most positive people that I can find on earth. Whether it's in person, whether it's through the internet, it doesn't matter. I believe your tribe determines your success.
So there's a lot of theory and study out there and statistics that you guys can all go look up with. The sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with is huge. You want to be around a community, and this is what is good about the military and bad, because we have what we call battle buddies. We have that brotherhood, we have that camaraderie with the people that we serve with. And a lot of times as veterans, we get out and we lose that camaraderie and we kind of get lost. And that's a very bad place for most veterans to be in. But if you're in a situation with friends, family, whatever, and they're not supporting your dreams, your goals, your hopes, your healing,
Fire your
then
friends.
exactly, get away from them. And this is proof in the pudding right here. So do you think, I mean, mindset definitely important. So do you think anyone going through any form of sickness or disease, that fitness is very paramount and health and nutrition is very paramount as well?
Absolutely. But let me do my disclaimer that's almost like obligated. I never would encourage anyone to go out and do an Ironman with cancer or without cancer, right?
Mm.
It's just an incredibly ridiculous event.
Yes, Battlefitted will
However,
not be held responsible for any
yeah,
liability. No, just kidding.
yeah, Coach Rob and I are not responsible. The warning's been out there. However, I just worked with a friend, John, for the last 6 weeks through radiation. He's in Phoenix. And I said, do what you love. He loves walking. So we set goals 5 minutes of walking every day the first
Mm.
week. Then we got it to 10 minutes. Then we got it to 15 minutes. Excuse me. Then he set a goal after 4 weeks to play one round of golf. I'm not a golfer, but whatever the 8 or 9 holes is, he did that thing. And then at the end of his radiation, did another one of those things. So whatever it is you love doing, whether it's kayaking, going to the movies with your significant other, golfing, jogging, being active, keep doing that. That's who you are.
Definitely.
What I believe is too many people that face the most serious challenge of their life, often cancer, losing a job, divorce, they tend to put everything on hold and say, when I get back to
Yeah,
X,
definitely.
then I'll begin Y. And I feel like that's the worst thinking there is in terms of turning horseshit into success.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, you know, and that's the whole mantra behind turning your pain into progress. And I always tell people, and I'm probably going to say this every podcast till the last podcast airs, that you have to have limitless beliefs, not limiting beliefs. You have to
Yes.
believe in your mindset that is so strong that no matter what you're faced, you can overcome and accomplish it. And realize that in those uncomfortable moments, when a parent dies, when you get a divorce, that's when you can find your greatest success. You have to kind of turn the problems into power. And I like to tell veterans, or anybody for that matter that has mental health issues, if you can figure out how to deal with your issues in a positive, progressive manner, you are almost a superhero and you have better ways of being resilient and dealing with more issues than 99% of the overall population. And we see it in Steve here, where he went through literally hell and back through what most people, he opened up a scandal at the VA. He got healthcare out in private sectors for us veterans to go to. He had cancer. He said, I'm going to run a marathon. Then he healed from cancer. And then he did another marathon. Like, that's ultimate mindset right there. Like, that's what I'm trying to teach everybody that listens to this. This is what I want for you, is have the strength to become the best version of yourself, because you only have one life. You might as well live that life to your fullest. Don't let anything be taken from you that you don't want to give, as far as energy, time, emotion. um I don't remember, did you say the cancer did come back, and are you currently cancer free?
Yes. So the cancer returned last year. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that also during this turmoil, I met the most incredible woman of
Mm,
my life. And we've been married 10 years this November. And
congratulations.
so, and thank you. And that all started, I met her after the diagnosis, after I started treatment. So, as we've been talking about today, during the worst time of your life, you can, with the right attitude,
Mm,
have the best time of your life. And
mm,
so, yes, the cancer, I did have a 10-year run of remission. I contribute in part to great doctors, excellent treatment, new medications and therapies, but also a positive mindset and staying active. The cancer returned last summer. I had surgery, been on 2 different drugs, and then as of 2 weeks ago, the cancer is back in remission. So,
awesome.
been able to leverage the same mindset, the same attitude to beat the crap out of this again. Don't get me wrong, I'm not immortal. I'm not trying to suggest to people that if you keep a positive attitude and you keep a good mindset and you stay active, that everything's going to be amazing for you. But I can tell you this, I know for a fact that if you just give up, you never win.
Right. And that comes from you saying, you know, once you quit, pretty much you're done. That's it. But if you fall down and you get back up, and you fall down and you get back up, no matter how many times, I always tell people it's not really a failure or failing because you didn't give up. And
Correct.
as long as you have that mindset, like I love telling people I was very dark. I operated in a very dark place with my mental health issues.
Hmm.
And it took a very long time to stop operating in the black and hate everything. And if this was me as you, I would have been one of those guys like, I hate my life. I hate my wife. Everything sucks.
Right.
And once I just changed my mindset to being thankful for what was around me, to be thankful for my wife, to be thankful for my family, to be able to breathe, to be able to wake up and go to the gym and work out and have all these choices and free will and decisions as you will, life is actually worth living and it's not that bad. And we're listening to a perspective from a guy once again who went through like just a very, very something that I think would break a lot of people. So I just want to commend you on your resilience. Like that's amazing, and I can't believe I get to tell this story. And I hope we get to share this with as many people as possible. Before we close out
Yes.
the show, I think you really, I don't really even want to ask you what it means to you to turn pain into progress because I
Sure.
think you already have done that throughout your life. Besides your one message, never quit, what is like one last message you want
Yeah.
to share with somebody that may be struggling with whether mental health issues, divorce, a cancer, or anything that's really wreaking havoc on their life right now? And that's how we'll close the show.
Absolutely. I love it. So I know there's going to be some people listening and thinking, okay, Steve looks fairly healthy now, is positive, won a lot of money. I also, went into private sector and had some success in businesses and all of that. I met a great wife and she has a great career and it seems like things have just been, amazing. However, what I want to share with you, and I say the best for the last, is that for 14 years, I've not
Mm,
had an erection.
mm,
For 14 years, I have not had control of my urine.
mm,
For 8 of those 14 years, I wore diapers.
mm,
So I want people to know that even when we look like we're doing good, we are still battling a lot of struggles and a lot of demons.
definitely.
However, if we allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by the fact that my penis no longer works or that I'm leaking and wearing diapers,
Mm,
it's an easy, slippery slope to suicide, right? And I've been there with more men than I care to count. But as we talked about in the beginning, the mission, right? And the mission's always not been about Steve Cooper making money, Steve Cooper getting married, Steve Cooper doing this or Steve Cooper doing that. The mission has been, how do I help in my however I can to ensure that future veterans are able to receive care in the private sector when the VA cannot or will not provide them care.
right.
That mission drove me, though I was wearing diapers at the Rose Garden, though I was wearing diapers doing Ironmans and leaking everywhere,
Mm,
seeing blood all over the place,
mm,
not being able to have intercourse with my wife ever, it doesn't matter because it was about then how do I find love? How do I give back to others? We bought a car for a veteran champion last week, my wife and I.
oh, nice.
So I share with you the things that no man wants to share, right?
Right.
The worst of the worst.
Mm,
Even given all of that, if we continue to remember that it's about doing something for others, that's what life is about. I truly believe that you can still have an amazing, fulfilling life that's so rewarding because you've committed to giving back. Because when you give back, those gifts come back tenfold in
definitely.
ways that you never expect.
Definitely.
And so
And once again, yeah,
that's my parting thoughts, Rob, is that give back, give for others, and think about the mission. And that is what can get you through the worst of the worst.
service to others. And my
Yeah.
last episode that I had the guest on, Ray Martin, he actually talked about how he went from the UK to Australia to take care of his friend who was battling breast cancer at the time, to help deal with some of his trauma. And I just want to say, if you can have a service mindset, no matter how small, whether that's donating your clothes to the Goodwill, or helping someone on the street get something to eat, or if you see somebody in public struggling, take a minute to talk to them. We all have battles, and we all have internal battles, as Steve just said. But how we deal with these battles and help other people is how we build a resilient life of inner peace and fulfillment and purpose and gratitude. And I guarantee you, I don't do this for the money. I do this because this is my purpose. My passion is to tell these people stories, heal the world, help as many people as I can, and impact as many lives as I can. Because once again, like Steve said, it's not about Steve Cooper. It's not about Coach Rob. It's about making the world a better place before we're gone and we leave this. So, Steve, I commend you for everything you're doing. For you guys don't know, we'll put a contact leave for Steve. He does help veterans with their claims and other issues. He does have some resources to help veterans.
And can I please clarify, Rob, and when we help, I never in my life have, now, or will take a penny from a veteran. So everything I do is pro bono.
Yes, sir.
100%. So I want to be very clear about that.
Yes. And he's very passionate about helping people.
Yeah.
And, if you need help from me, from a coaching perspective, if you need help from Steve from a benefits or some sort of care issue, or you just want to talk to either one of us, reach out. That's what we're here to do. Steve, thank you so much for telling your story. Such an amazing story. And I hope a lot of people get to hear this, because this was an amazing episode. So thank you for being on the Battle Harder podcast.
Thank you so much, Coach Rob. And thanks for everything you do for our community as well.
Oh, no worries. I do it regardless of the accolades or not. But guys, it's been an episode of the Battle Harder podcast. I hope we motivated, educated, and inspired you to become the best version of yourself. And until next time, always be fit for battle. Thank you.
That's awesome. Take care.
You've just heard another battle-tested conversation. Now it's time to take action. If this episode lit a fire in you, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or YouTube, so you never miss a moment that could change your life. Want to go deeper? Connect with Coach Rob at BattleFittedBrain.com for coaching, gear, and tools to help you turn your pain into progress. Remember, life will test you, but you're built to battle harder. Until next time, stay locked in, stay ready, and keep showing up.